Yo guys, I'm Nick from Plugins and welcome back to a brand new video. In this video I will go over a future house track that's included in our new pack Futuristic Volume 2. If you're interested in Futuristic Volume 2, make sure to head over to the link in the description. It contains a lot of futuristic sounds that are a must for every future house and bounce producer. Without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. As you can see, I loaded up the project and I will now go over it and explain everything a bit more detailed. So the first thing I start with is a lead sound. For this project we decided to go for a brassy kind of lead, which sounds very huge. It sounds like this. This melody is a very typical future bounce melody, and the theory behind it is very simple. So we have some bass notes, which is going from a F to a D sharp to a C to a C sharp. The top notes are basically notes that are from the chords of the bass notes, if that makes sense. So if we would make a F minor chord, we would add a G sharp. And now we just did that on top of that, which gives the harmonic effect in the melody. The synth itself sounds like this. It's a synth created in Serum. Oscillator A is a default saw wave pitched down 1 octave. It just has one voice of unison, so it's a kind of like a mono lead. For the rest, everything is the same. Except the level, which is turned down a little bit. On oscillator B we have a saw wave as well, which is not pitched any octaves. It has 6 voices of unison. The detuned is turned down a little bit, and for the rest all the settings are default. We also did not add noise or something. The next important thing is that we added a filter, a MG Low 12 filter, which is routed through oscillator A and B, as you can see on these knobs. LFO2 is shaped like this. It's put on envelope mode, and it's linked to the MG Low 12 filter, which is not fully opening up. It's opening up to like 70%. The shape of the LFO has a lot of attack, which creates the brassy sound. So once you have a saw wave and you filter it with a attacked kind of envelope, you will get the brassy kind of lead vibe. The most important part of this lead are the effects, and especially the distortion, which is just creating a huge difference on the sound. So I will play the sound with and without distortion. So first of all, once again, this is what it sounds like with distortion, and when I turn that off, it sounds like this. So this distortion is almost destroying the sound in a way, but it still sounds very cool and unique to me. So we decided to just proceed with the Diode 1 distortion put on like 58% drive. On top of that, there is some dimension to make it sound a bit bigger. And that's basically it. The rest of the effects that you see are from the macros that you can use to tweak the sound to your own preference. The next layer of the lead is a synth, which is from Futuristic Volume 2 as well. It's called Synth 3. It's just pitched to a C, so you can simply copy the melody into it, and it sounds like this. It's the same type of sound, but just a bit of a different texture, and together they sound really cool. Another thing that's done a lot in this type of music are those fast notes on the end of your bar. It's something nice that you can do to your leads. To be honest, on the first lead, we only thought that it needed some EQing, and in this case it's very minimal EQing, just a subtle cut on the sub bass, but we decided to keep a lot of the bass and mid frequencies on this lead, because it's really the main element of the drop. It should really stand out in the whole frequency spectrum. Then of course we added a sidechain, which is the Nicky Romero kickstart on 100%. And on the second lead we added a fruity stereo shaper with the delay to the left a bit. For the second part of the drop, you can decide to switch up the lead a bit. So in this case, we switched the melody up a little bit. Small rhythmic changes and also some notes that are different from the original melody. So that's it for the lead. Let's move on to the bass. The bass exists out of 3 layers. Together they sound like this. You can describe them as low, punchy basses that just follow the rhythm of the bass notes of the lead. The first bass is basically a punch kind of bass to add some punch to it. It's two on the first oscillator it has 12 voices of unison and it's pitched down to. The second oscillator has the FFT at fourths wavetable. Together they are routed through a filter with envelope 1 shaped like this, very short. Envelope 3 is linked to the chorus pitch of both oscillators, and that will give the punchy effect. Then there is some tube distortion, and in the end there is some filtering going on. The next bass is a typical saw bass. We have 2 saw waves, one with 1 voice of unison and one with 7 voices of unison, with the tune slightly turned down. The first oscillator has the half sync window turned on, but as you can see, it's not really doing that much. The noise oscillator is turned on as well, and LFO 1 is linked through that as well, through the filter, which is fully opening up. Then there is some tape saturation, which is quite new into Serum. I believe it was there since the latest update, which allows you to add some saturation to your sound, so you can just enrich the harmonics a bit. Then there is some chorus, a compressor with the multiband mode turned on just to squash it a little bit. And then we have the MG Low 18 filter turned to like 77, which creates the low punchy kind of sound, and that sounds like this soloed. The last bass from the drop is just the sub bass. I won't tell too much about this. It is just a sine wave with some distortion and a filter. It sounds like this. On the first bass we cut out some of the low sub and bass frequencies, as we just want this as a top punch bass layer, which doesn't need the sub frequency. Then on top of that we added the British clean patch from Camel Crusher, which is basically compressing and distorting the sound a bit more, just to make it a bit more fat. For the second bass we decided to go for 2 different EQs, one with the 20 Hz plus 18 kHz cut preset, on which we got rid of all the sub frequencies. We didn't really want them in this bass, so this preset really makes sure that they are all eliminated. Then we have some subtle boosts and cuts in the sound as well. As you can see, we boosted some frequencies in the low mid area, and we cut some in the treble area. The sub bass has a hard cut on it as well. We dragged down this slider to around 200 Hz. Then there is a kickstart on the sub bass, which is 100%. We always add all the basses to a bus where we put a sidechain on it, but we also put a separate sidechain that's 100% to the sub bass is most frequently clashing with your kick, and we don't want it. We want to keep that clean. We want them to interact with each other, and we don't want to have them fight with each other. There's also a British clean, which is once again fattening up the sound with some distortion and compression. Then on the bus of the basses there is a sidechain as well, and on this one the mix is only turned up to 75%. Together that sounds like this. For the second part of the drop we decided to add some chords as well. The chords are following the rhythm of the lead, and we use chord inversions to make it sound really big. So a chord inversion is basically that you take notes and you put them an octave higher or lower. So normally a F minor chord would look like this, but right now we put it an octave higher, and in this case that's just better because we also wanted some high notes in the sound. But that's mostly just personal preference. The sound we used for this is also really simple. 2 saw waves that are each detuned a bit different. They are both linked through a MG-Low 12 filter with this short envelope too. And also for the effects, it's basically really simple. Some basic chorus, and for the rest, I believe this is not even doing anything. So really simple sound, which sounds like this. I believe in future house, the sounds don't have to be complicated. It's just a combination of sounds that you use and the layers of sounds that you use that make your track stand out or that make your track sound professional. On this course we put a delay to the right, we put a reverb, which is very minimal. As you can see, the wet is only 30%, and a Nicky Romero kickstart on 80%. The bass and the lead together sound like this. Then with the chords it sounds like this. We added a step from the Futuristic pack, which makes a huge difference as well. We added reverb and a sidechain on the step just so it fits into our mix. The drums in the first part of the drop are really simple. It's basically just a kick with some perks and some sweeps, which sounds like this. In the second bar of the drop there are some claps coming in. And as you can see in the second part of the drop there are some loops, some rides, just to create some variety in the drop. As you can see in the first bar of the drop, the drums are very minimal, which just creates a cool effect of the drop sounding a bit empty, and then suddenly all these drums are coming in as well. So that's a trick that's used in many genres like future house, deep house, stuff like that. Another important thing that are really subtle but really important are these small short fills in between the drop. Just really important to get the groove going. The next thing we did in the drop is we took a fruity reverb, we turned up the decay very much, and we put down the wet to 0%. After that we created an automation, and then you can create subtle sweeps in between the notes. So if you can listen, you will hear it. In the second part of the drop we added some pitch bends to the chords. This is really simple, but it just gives it a bit of the Jonas Aiden vibe. We also added a phaser automation that on the end of each bar is coming in very subtle. It creates the phasing effect on the leads, which is pretty cool. Let's move on to the build-up. We used a Reese bass that is playing the bass notes in the build-up. A Reese bass is really effective and it's used a lot nowadays. It's not really that original anymore, but it can just be really helpful if you want to make your build-up sound a bit more full. So a Reese bass is basically a saw wave which is constantly playing with a filter on it. This one has some sine fold distortion on it, but you can get creative with that just to tweak the bass a bit more to your own preference. Then there is an ambient string, basically a violin kind of sound, which we made in Serum. Then we filtered out the leads, which sounds like this. As you can see, we just grabbed the preset 20 Hz plus 18 kHz cut and we automated this button. It's slowly coming in towards the drop, but it's only opening full in the drop itself. On top of that, we used a vocal. We recorded it ourselves. You can do that too. We did some tutorials on vocal recording as well. It's really easy. You just need a bunch of auto-tune and some multiband compression, and that's basically it to create your own vocals. Just keep it simple, just as we did right here. I will preview it. I'm losing my mind, losing my mind. So this vocal is so heavily processed that you can barely hear that we sang it ourselves. Maybe if you pitch it up, it sounds a bit familiar, but still it won't really sound like us. Then we use some vocal shots in the second part of the build-up. We also added a pitch automation. We put the range on 6, which is half an octave. If you put it on 12, you go up 1 octave, and we added the automation and it sounds like this. Then for the build-up drums, we use a lot of snare fills, a lot of uplifters, a lot of like rides, stuff like that. One thing I can say is that it's really helpful to layer a lot of drums in your build-up. Most people only tend to add like one snare fill and some uplifters, but you will make it sound much bigger if you add a lot of elements on top of each other. But only if you properly apply gain staging, because you don't want all the drums to be really loud, which results in your drop not hitting that hard. In the last part of the build-up, there is this kick coming in. It's filtered, and it really gives a cool effect. The break is most likely the most simple part of this project. You can get a lot more in depth on it, but we decided to keep it simple. So the only new element in this is basically this ARP. It's a very ambient sound, a lot of reverb and delay on it, and you need this kind of sounds in your break to make it sound huge. We added a pitch automation on this as well, which once again gives the Jonas Aiden kind of vibe to the track. And if I'm honest, the melody also has these. It's in a scale that just reminds me a bit of something that Jonas would make. And it sounds like this. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but that's just something I think about when listening to this. Then there is a filtered clap underneath with some impacts and a down filter. And in the second part there is a clap loop and some rides. Also the vocal comes in, and that's basically it for the break. So in this video I quickly went over a full Future House project made by us. If you guys want to see more Future House videos, or if you guys have any ideas, make sure to send us a message on Instagram or leave a comment below. We're also planning on doing some collab videos with some Future House artists, which will be really sick. At the moment we are really looking into improving the content on our channel and to add a bit more variety to. For now I'm going to play the end result. I hope this video gave you some quick insights to create a Future House track. In the next video I will dive into the sound design a bit more detailed. I will start some sounds from scratch. Maybe if you guys, we can also start a project, a Future House project from scratch, as I believe that's something you guys will learn a lot from as well. This video is really general, so if you guys want to see some more detailed videos on this subject, make sure to leave a comment. Right now you can still check out the Futuristic Volume 2 pack on our website. It got great support by some huge artists like Tujamo, 22 Bullets, Vinay, Robbie Mendes, Gaspar and many more. For now I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.